Welcome to This Week in Missouri Politics. Busy time in the Missouri State Capitol, budget time, and we are joined by the guy that writes the Missouri State budget, Senator Lincoln Hough, the chairman of the Appropriations Committee. Welcome to This Week in Missouri Politics.
Scott, always fun to be here. I will push back just a little bit. I don't write the whole budget. We've got a pretty nice.
You don't want to take the blame for all.
I don't want to take the blame for what's getting ready to happen next week. How's that?
So tell me, you had the governor's budget was turned in. You had the House budget.
Yep.
And it does feel as though the governor gives a framework, and the House makes some kind of political statement about things. And then you come in and write a budget that funds the state.
So we try, I think, and I've said this a bunch of times, so we try to prioritize the things that I think are going to make a lasting impact on people's lives, right? I mean, education, funding, capital projects all over the state. Sometimes it's as simple as opening up a little bit of infrastructure around an industrial park in a community that doesn't have the capacity to get it done. And we've been very fortunate in the last few years to make a lot of those investments. So, the House has their process. I think they had the budget for, 4-ish months or something like that. And we got it in our committee on a Monday or a Tuesday, and the next week we had it voted out. So I think 9 days to completely mark the thing up. And you got, again,
Testament to your staff, right?
Testament to the staff and really the committee. I mean, the committee hangs in there. I mean, we do meetings, every day, all day, it seems like. And a lot of people ask to be on appropriations, and not a lot of people really put in all the time that it requires. But we've got a great kick-ass committee right now. We do.
So as you go forward, one of the differences has been talked about is the education line item. The governor kind of went away from the formula. The House seemed like they were fine with that. You've kept a little bit more closer to what the formula is now. A formula, by the way, that is very helpful to rural Missouri.
Right. So when I said, making investments in things that are lasting, have lasting impacts on folks' lives, I think education is paramount to that. And I think we all knew when we passed Senate Bill 727 last year that there were financial implications with reallocation and funding formulas associated with the foundation.
It was never going to add up.
And well, it had a number, and it has changes. I was on the floor. I said, hey, guys, this thing has a cost, and yeah, it's going to be big. And so I think, and I've been very outspoken about this, I think if we're going to pass laws and we know they cost money, we need to fund it. We need to pay for it. Like, I just think, I think it's...
Or repeal the law.
I think it's disingenuous to say, look at what we did, but there's no money to back it up, right? So we're making that fully funding the foundation formula kind of a pinnacle in our Senate budget. Absolutely. It was about $300 million on top of what the House passed out and sent over to us.
Well, it did seem like some folks in that deal from last year got what they bargained for, but some of the rural schools might not get what they were promised.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's wrong. I think it's disingenuous and it's wrong. So to the extent that I can make it right, that's what we're going to do.
A lot of talk about changing how schools are done. It does feel like the school choice, some version of that idea is time.
Sure.
It looks like it's came.
Yeah.
But it does feel as though there's a chance that your smaller rural schools who benefit from the current foundation formula and the way things are done, they could be losers in this.
They could. It just depends. I think there's only one guy in the building right now, maybe two, that are still around the last time we rewrote the foundation formula. I know, Governor Keough's put a committee together.
He's one of those guys.
There's a lot of people on that committee, which means you're going to have a lot of different opinions.
Oh, and you've been on Blue Ribbon commissions. They're all working.
You think it's already done? I don't know. There's probably going to be some tweaks in there, but it's been, 20 plus years since that thing's really been revisited. So yeah, it needs to be looked at. And, we've got all kinds of ed reform bills. And like I said, this kind of goes back to what I started with, Scott. We did an ed reform bill last year. And if we're going to do them, we're going to pay for them.
Let me ask you this. When it's done, can you tell folks right now, as long as you're there, rural schools won't be left holding the bag?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's been, like I said, I've said that publicly a number of times that we're not going to disenfranchise one segment, one population group of this state for someone else. We're just not going to do it. Not as long as I'm there.
So break down. Give me some other stuff that's in this budget. You're running towards the end of the ARPA, COVID, whatever you want to call it, money.
Yeah,
you've been able to paper over probably pretty close to break even or deficit with some of those projects. How much longer does the state have? You've stretched that dime. I did a radio interview. I said, you've really turned that penny into a copper wire.
Yeah.
You've stretched it. How much more stretch can you do to pull that?
So the quick explanation on that is the ARPA dollars are already allocated. We've got a House Bill 20, which is essentially a reappropriation bill of all those ongoing projects that are funded with ARPA dollars. So I've been saying it since last year. Don't come in my office, our committee, and say, I've got a project and let's use ARPA money for it, because that's all gone. It's all spent, right? It's still in the budget. It's still being appropriated out the door, but those dollars are gone.
So right now you still have a positive budget.
We do.
But a lot of that, it feels like
It's predicated. It's predicated on what I just said is already spent, right? It's predicated on the fact that we had billions of dollars coming in from the federal government. We've allocated it to projects, capital investments all over the state. Obviously, I mean, we talk about the highways all the time, but I-70, I-44, billions of dollars worth of investment. Psychiatric hospital in Kansas City was a $300 million project, all brought to you by those federal dollars. Now, what that also did is that freed up the general revenue that we now have in the bank. I know Governor Kehoe, whenever he dropped his budget, I think he still had $1.5 billion. We call it on the bottom line. It's holdover. I've now become, I don't know exactly when I became the old guy, but I've become one of the older hats in the Senate now. And I remember, Scott, the days whenever I was in the House where if we had a 200 or 250 or $300 million carryover from one fiscal year to the next, like we were doing good. Like when Governor Nixon was in office, if we carried over a few $100 million, because that's how tight it was. And people, we talked a little bit about cutting taxes and things like that, but when people want to do those things, it's easy to have that conversation when we have billions of dollars in the bank. And what I try to do, and I try not to be a broken record on this, but what I try to do is I try to remind people that it's easy to do it when you got money in the bank. When this thing normalizes, as it is now, when we see, I will describe it as almost anemic, state revenue growth, right? 1%, 1.5%, 2%. I mean, think of it as 150, maybe $200 million general revenue addition over last year. That doesn't keep up with your foundation formula increase. It doesn't keep up with Medicaid. And then what are we going to do? And I've said this again. What are we going to do if the federal government comes in and says, hey, I know you guys expanded Medicaid. The voters approved it. The Missouri Supreme Court unanimously told us, the legislature, the voters approved it. You have to fund it. We've got a 90-10 match from the feds. Each percent that reimbursement from the federal government would go down, Scott.
What is that?
$30 million in general revenue. So say we go to an 80-20 match from the feds and that's just the expanded population. Okay, that's $300 million that we have to come up with from general revenue. I've talked to Director Richardson. Todd's a friend of mine, and with a former colleague in the House when we both served over there. Those are the kinds of things that keep us up at night.
Yeah. Well, let me just break into this. You've been a leading member of this party for 15 years. Over those 15 years, you've cut taxes from income tax from 6 to 4.
Yeah.
There's been no growth. Not one single person. We've not kept up with the national average in population growth, GDP, anything. I've always been a guy, if there's a tax, cut the tax. Let's cut them.
Sure.
But there's also been promises that we would see growth.
Right.
And I think the Republican Party at some point is going to have to answer for the thought of, you've cut these taxes on the promise of growth.
Right.
Where's the growth?
So this is the timing of this is apropos because April 15th, right? Tax day. So when you sit down with your accountant and you're going through your budget and your tax liability, is it the state that bothers you? Is it the 4.5% that bothers you? Or is it the 20, and I have no idea what tax bracket you're in, probably the highest would be my guess. But
not as high as I want to be.
Yeah. But it's the feds, right? It's the federal government. Like if someone wants to do something, and I appreciate that we've got a few new members in Congress now, but if those guys actually want to do something, give me a tax break on the federal side, because that's what kills us.
When Trump cut taxes, it's the first time a tax cut I ever
actually meant something to you.
Maybe it's because I was older and making enough money, but I actually noticed that the money.
There was a difference. Yeah, there was a difference.
What do you do? I mean, if you're on these promises, I mean, the governor, who I know you support, has said, I want to take this to zero. I mean, I've asked this question to some.
Well, you got to make it up somewhere. You got to make it up somewhere, and it's in my opinion a little disingenuous to say, well, we're just going to cut. We can't cut all taxes to zero, right? I mean, like we've got schools and penalized officers,
right?
And hospitals, and I mean, like we've got communities all over the place. I've got a community that's just clamoring for a bridge, and I'm going. We can't say yes to everything. We don't have an unlimited budget, and we're still having these conversations about let's cut more taxes. How about we let the tax cuts that we put in place in a special session under Governor Parson? How about we let them run their course and see where we are, and see if
you think folks are afraid if they run their course there'll be no growth?
I don't know. I don't know what the fear would be.
Of that? You have to start to get worried at some point.
That the experiment doesn't work.
Well, you've done a third of the experiment and saw no growth.
Right.
I think folks should be a little worried that
I think no growth. How about anemic? Right. How about minimal?
Not keeping up with the national average.
No, absolutely not.
So let's talk about Prop A. Look, I thought it was a bad idea. I think there's a lot of burdensome stuff on businesses.
Sure.
But the folks voted for it. Now the Senate and the House are trying to come up with some ways to rein that in because it was statutorily done.
Correct.
It got to be a little tough when a Democrat sits on the floor of the Senate and says, well, the voters voted for this. The people of this state wanted these things. And then I hear from the Republicans oftentimes, well, the folks are just stupid. Now, they were very smart when they voted for state legislature.
Right. Yeah, that's
Proposition.
I like to remind people, well, they voted for you, right? I mean, you're sitting in that chair, you're standing behind that desk, and you're saying, well, they didn't know. Well, they didn't know then, or I personally, I think one, yeah, you're exactly right. It's got a lot of burdensome issues for businesses. Whether you're small or large, it doesn't matter. I mean, there are things associated with Prop A that are going to be problematic for folks back at home, but I wake up with the very real realization every single morning that elections do have consequences, and sometimes voters get it right and sometimes they get it wrong.
So what's going to happen? I mean, there's been a couple nights you've spent in the Senate, folks trying to do a deal.
Yep.
It felt like there's a deal was close a couple times, but I do think you've got a couple things at play here. You've got some state interest pushing very hard, and you've got some national interest that paid for Prop A that's not from Missouri. And I think, folks are taking their thoughts into account, too.
So, this is probably a better question for Senator Luetkemeyer, and I never punt on these things with you, but here's my read on it. Tony has spent a lot of floor time trying to get this done.
Mm-hmm.
Couple of long nights, couple of really late nights into early mornings, right? To have it from perceivably at the last second kind of fall apart for whatever reason. I'm not involved in all of them. Contrary to popular belief, I'm not one of those guys that interjects myself into every single discussion.
We've been writing a budget. Right?
We've been dealing a little bit with, $50 billion of spending. The honest truth about this is the runway in your Missouri legislature, thank God, is getting a little short, right? We've got 3 weeks left. We have 3 weeks.
And a budget to do.
We've got a budget to perfect and pass on the floor, presumably next week. We've got a conference with the House. And just, friendly reminder, when the Senate and the House are conferencing, unlike the House, we're not in session. Yep. We're not on the floor. So that eats up floor time, right? And then we have to come in and TAFP the bills the following week by the 9th day of May. That's our constitutional deadline. I mean, how many of these big ticket items, and Prop A is an important one. It's important to a lot of business folks, and I know the Missouri Chamber's working on it. How much time do we really have to get these last handful of things done? And, don't discount the fact that we've done a lot of good conservative stuff already. Like we've had a functioning and pretty good year so far. I'm not saying we're done by any stretch, but 3 weeks
feels like a much better place to be than
3 weeks feels short to me. When you're still wrestling with getting the budget done twice on our floor and a couple of these other big items.
Mr. Prater from your neck of the woods was appointed by Governor Kehoe to the State Board of Education. He was pulled back. Tell me about this guy from your constituent.
Yeah, so he's a constituent. He's a neighbor. He and his wife Kim have been friends for a long time. I think Dr. Prater, he's an eye surgeon, named partner at a clinic there in Springfield. Has been for, I don't know, it's got probably 30 years or something like that. Good guy. When I had him in front of the gubernatorial appointments committee yesterday, actually, I don't usually go through and just say, look at all the qualifications, look at the school that he went to, and how amazing it is. I talk about someone's character because I know him personally, right? And he truly is doing this because he's been asked. He was asked by Governor Parson, and I believe served as an interim member of the Board of Education, and now is being asked by Governor Kehoe. And I'll be honest, I don't actually know what the objections are from a handful or one or two or however many individuals. But I've said before that if I voted no on not just people but every piece of legislation that I got a phone call or an email from someone about who said I don't like this, we'd never vote for we'd never do anything, Scott, because someone has an issue with everything that we do at any time.
Well,
but Tom's a good guy. He's a friend, and I hope that there's a path here in the future that he gets to serve in the capacity that he's been asked to serve in.
Thank you for coming and visiting, sharing your views on This Week in Missouri Politics.
Thanks, Scott.
We'll be right back. My buddy Jake Kroesen is going to take over the Opinion Maker panel after this.
For more than a century, the St. Louis Carpenters Union has shaped our communities. Through trusted alliances, we deliver skilled professional craftspeople while our business partners provide the kind of quality jobs that keep our economy humming. It's a blueprint that has worked since 1882. Turning Missouri into a right-to-work state stalls progress, wipes out jobs, and kills momentum. Right to work is wrong for everyone. Let's keep Missouri moving forward. Visit carpdc.org to learn more.
You know, Missouri farmers have been doing what's best for their land for generations. After all, no one knows what it takes to feed and fuel a growing global population better than they do. So why are trial lawyers threatening Missouri farmers' best defense against weeds? Our farmers don't need to be controlled. They need to be supported. Keep glyphosate in our state. Show your support at TakeControlMissouri.com. Paid for by Modern Ag Alliance and support of Missouri farmers.
Missouri's childcare crisis is hurting our children, families, and even our economy. Currently, 78 Missouri counties are designated as childcare deserts, where the number of kids needing childcare exceeds the number of available options. Today, some Missouri families are spending more on childcare than housing, and Missouri's childcare shortage costs our economy $1.35 billion every year. Missouri families and businesses deserve better. Learn more at mochampionofchildren.com.
Some politicians claim cockfighting is a proud tradition, but is it really something to be proud of? Cockfighting isn't just cruel to animals, it's cruel to humans. It's linked to organized criminal activity, illegal gambling, even drug trafficking. Leading law enforcement and Christian groups have spoken out and are urging a stop to the violence. But some politicians want to give cockfighters a pass. Keep cockfighting out of our state.
Data captured by our state-of-the-art monitors helps us pinpoint the timing and location of severe weather more accurately and respond to trouble more quickly. Ameren, Missouri's investment in smart technologies like this is one way we're improving reliability and restoring power faster than ever. Responding to trouble before trouble hits. That's energy at work. Ameren, Missouri.
Welcome back to This Week in Missouri Politics. I'm Jay Kroesen. I'm the editor of Missouri Times, and today I'm joined by an all-star panel. Down here we have we have Representative Cameron Parker from the Boot Heel.
Hello.
Freshman Representative Stephanie Boykin from St. Louis County.
Oh, it's great to be here.
And Freshman Representative Mike Steinmeyer from good old Independence.
Good to have you. Another Independence guy with you.
We got to stick together.
That's right.
This week, obviously, you guys have seen a lot of big issues come up. Obviously, big issues this session, from abortion, education, guns, taxes, all that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, one of the big issues that really doesn't get brought up enough is veterans issues. Representative Boykin, I know you have a bill in the Veterans Committee right now, and I know it's near and dear to your heart given your service. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, the bill is House Bill 954. Currently, it's been given, or it's been transferred to the Rules Committee, and so very hopeful. But it's about protections for National Guard members. These are citizen airmen, citizen soldiers. I'm also a former National Guard member myself, so I certainly can relate. But it's making sure that they have the legal and financial protections that they deserve.
One of the big things that I've always believed is that we need to take care of those who take care of us. And at the end of the day, I mean, it really is sad to say, at the end of the day, veterans issues don't get brought up enough. And I think bills like that would actually be really helpful, especially now when we're seeing a lot of storms and a lot of things happen in Southeast and Southwest Missouri, take out, whole towns from the pictures that we've seen. We really should be helping to support those who have been working to help us in those times of need. I mean, Representative Steinmeyer, you served in the Navy, so obviously you're not unfamiliar with veterans issues and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, do you think Missouri needs to be doing more for its veterans?
I think Missouri veterans wished the state would do more.
We come from an area with a lot of veterans.
A lot of veterans, and so I belong to both VFW and American Legion, and they're concerned about the fact that Missouri's falling farther behind in some of their veteran programs. They really need to be updated. So I commend you for putting something forward and I didn't know you were a veteran, so
Yeah.
I appreciate your service. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, the things that veterans bring to the state is an economy. Whether they're retired, whether they're active, reservists, state guard, they get paid.
Yeah.
And if you're a disabled veteran, you bring an economy to the state that we need to do better to not just serve them, but to retain them. Since 2012, we've lost about 30% of our veteran population in the state. And it's not because they're passing away. They're moving away because they're states that have better programs for veterans. And so I think we need to take a step back and look at what veterans bring on the economic side. and encourage them to stay here, retire here, live here. And I don't think we've done a good job with that.
Yeah.
And
And I mean, at the end of the day, Independence, we're home to a very famous veteran.
we are. And
Not just you.
And he
Not just you.
he was my favorite Republican. What was his name? Oh, Harry Truman. I liked him. That's right.
Representative Parker, at the end of the day, do you think that something gets done in the House this year in regards to veterans that will go to the governor's desk?
You know, I would hope so. I mean, protecting our veterans, just as both representatives had said, would be so beneficial. I mean, we want to retain them in the state of Missouri, but we need to take care of them. And my dad served in the National Guard. My grandfather's family, they were all veterans. And so not just because they're family members, those folks that go and fight for us to keep us safe, and we got to take care of them. So I would love to see something like her bill be pushed through.
And moving on to a less pleasant conversation. Last night, as of last night, Senate Democrats had a second filibuster against Prop A, which currently the bill would strip most of the sick leave pay in there and the sick leave proposition in Prop A. Representative Parker, obviously you come from an area with a lot of small businesses down in the Boot Heel.
Yes.
And from what I've been hearing from small business owners is that they just can't really go with that kind of regulation. Like they don't have the funding, they don't have the ability to hold on to that. I mean, at the end of the day, it really does hurt a lot of small businesses.
It does, especially I mean, we don't have many. I mean, what we have are small businesses in Southeast Missouri, and I think the mandate like this would really, really be harmful. And then it would benefit some of the employees perhaps, but in turn, it's going to close your small businesses. People are not going to be able to maintain that type of pay scale. And I think you then in turn have folks that are unemployed, can't keep a job because your small businesses can't afford to keep them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but at the end of the day, Representative, the voters did vote for this. At the end of the day, roughly 57% of the state did vote for this in the last election. So, I mean, Democrats do have a point when they say that they are kind of overturning the will of voters if they choose to go ahead with this.
Yes, I mean that's a very true statement. I mean the people have spoken, and while those challenges that come to small business, as the representative just pointed out, are something you can't ignore. I mean, it's something that has to be dealt with. The people voted. Many of them probably are in situations where they work and they can't take off because they don't have sick leave. They're not covered and that kind of thing. And so they voted something that they felt like that would really be helpful to them and their families, and they're with the hope that the business community will work that out in some kind of way. I don't know what the answer is to that, but the people have spoken.
Yeah. Representative Steinmeyer, I mean, we come from a very blue-collar district, and if I remember correctly, SD 11 voted for this bill, or voted for this proposition. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a complex issue. Do you think they get something done in the Senate, or do you think it's going to go through?
I don't. It's hard to guess the Senate at this point.
That is true.
At this late into the session, I'm glad you went last night and watched, and
It's a sleepier day today for reasons.
Yeah. So, but small business took a big hit in Independence during COVID.
Yep.
We lost a lot. Now they're coming back, and we're putting something else on them, and it just creates an additional burden. But again, I think responsible small business owners already do the right thing for their employees. So, I appreciate the discussion, though. I think it's an awareness that we need to have.
Yeah.
But we need to embrace capitalism at every level. You just can't have big corporations run around all the time. Small business employees, a lot of people.
Yeah.
Well,
moving on to one more last subject, and that's education. Obviously, the Senate, they went through the budget markup this last couple weeks, and in the budget markup, they have fully funded the foundation formula. And Representative Parker, I know that is big in your district.
Yes.
Whether you're from a rural school or you're from a deep city school, fully funding the foundation formula is a priority to you.
It absolutely is. So I have 12 schools in my representative district, my House district, and I talk to those superintendents on a fairly regular basis, and we have to have the formula funded. Yeah, the foundation formula funded. A little alliteration.
There's too many F's.
Yeah, a lot of F's there. But no, I mean, without that, we're looking at our rural schools closing, and you think, well, that's some places have schools, just down the road. I mean, we're 20 miles, 30 miles apart. So, that's a long way that your kids are on buses. So I would like the foundation being fully funded.
No, and I think your constituents would agree. And I think your constituents would also agree, Representative Boyd.
Oh, definitely. Fully funding the public school system is imperative, and I believe that there are those. I mean, when I speak to superintendents, when I speak to everyday people, they say, well, we need to make sure that we have what we need in terms of funding for our public schools. But they're probably feeling like here in Jeff City, we're tone deaf. $50 million voted to go to private schools. And unfortunately, the Senate did, decide that that was not a good way to go, along with, a lot of constituents that feel like, wait a minute, let's make sure that we're taken care of in terms of our public schools. That's what we rely on. And that's where we want our tax dollars to go.
Yeah. At the end of the day, Independence does have a lot of schools, whether it's Truman, Van Horn, Chrisman,
Boykin being the best one. Yeah.
Well, I'll agree with you there.
Okay.
I'll agree with you there. But at the end of the day, there is also a big debate right now on the effectiveness of school choice.
Yeah.
How do you think that fits in there?
The public schools have a problem with it. However, I don't think there's real understanding that in every district they have that opt out. They don't have to participate. That's in the bill. So, so we've given the power to the school boards to make that determination. We don't talk about that a lot, and when I've talked to school board members, that's what I say. Well, you have the decision power. You can stay in your current system, or you can come over and open it up. But it's about as middle ground as you're going to find. It's not school choice. It's open enrollment, and you can opt in or you can opt out. So really the governing body of the school boards are in control, and they can make that decision.
With a minute left, who won the week?
I think this week are LAs, my LA in particular.
They are the people that make the bill.
It was administrative assistant day on Wednesday, and just they get not a lot of credit, but they do a lot of work. So I think
what about you, Representative Boyd?
I have to give my choice are the protesters that were in the chamber while we were debating the abortion issue. Because they were very respectful. They sat there quiet for 4 hours of debate, and in the end, they made their voices heard. And I think they were, again, echoing the choice of the people and the decision they made when they voted. So.
What about you?
Well, the Supreme Court had pie night last night, and I think that the justice who made the banana cream pie absolutely won my heart.
We'll figure out who that was. We'll deliver him your accolade.
But I love that sweet.
I'm going to say Bryce Beal won the week. Bryce, I have to congratulate you on becoming a new alderman in Ashland. It's fantastic to see you win that spot. But thank you for joining us on This Week in Missouri Politics. I hope you'll be joining us next week.
This Week in Missouri Politics is sponsored by the Missouri Automobile Dealers Association, Ameren, Spire, the United Electric Cooperative, and the Missouri Association of Career Fire Protection Districts.